Welcome to the London Horror Movie Club. I'm horror writer Lauren Jane Barnett.
And I'm Chris Sapikowski, Lauren's older brother, and I've been watching horror movies since I was 8.
Join us as we talk about the wild, weird, and wonderful horror films set in England's eerie capital. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This month on the London Horror Movie Club, we have been watching Limehouse Golem. This 2017 gothic horror was adapted from a book of the same name by Peter Ackroyd, and it follows a detective Inspector John Kildare, whose investigation into a serial killer known as the Limehouse Golem leads him to the trial of a young actress accused of poisoning her husband. There is a lot going on in this film, and I'm sure we have a lot to say. But before we dive into this, Chris, I've been waiting all month to hear what you thought of watching Evil Dead. You saw it now.
I've seen it now. I am embarrassed to admit that I completely blew it in the last podcast. I've seen Evil Dead at least 3 times. I've seen Evil Dead 2. I've seen Bubba Hotep. I've seen Ash vs. the Evil Dead. I know Bruce Campbell because to me, he's the Jim Carrey before Jim Carrey, especially in Evil Dead with his facial expressions and things. I do like it. I meant Dead Alive or Brain Dead. Is it Peter Jackson's New Zealand movie that it was the very famous, I guess in America, the very famous poster where the person's like opening their mouth and there's like a robot thing like in the mouth. So I watched that movie too because I really want to watch it. But yes, no, I have seen The Evil Dead and recommend The Evil Dead to anyone. Love The Evil Dead. Did not watch it this month because I have seen it before and really want to watch Dead Alive. Having said that, have you seen Dead Alive?
So I haven't seen Dead Alive. How is it? Is it good?
Halfway through the movie, I said, I cannot believe that this is the same man who made Lord of the Rings. It is by far, I enjoyed Dead Alive. I wouldn't, it won't be on a rotation for me by any means. I don't know if I ever need to watch it again. It is one of the most wacky movies I've ever, it's almost like a slapstick horror.
Oh, cool.
Like it's very out there, but there's some really fun scenes in the movie. So I mean, if you haven't seen it and you just want to be like this is crazy, like just craziness for an hour and a half, watch it. Like it's also just funny to think like this man who made Lord of the Rings, which is like, I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings fan in general. I went Harry Potter. Okay. So like you split them down the middle in America and like I'm more wizard, not trolls and hobbits. But yeah, so I just was like, he obviously had a vision and low budget, and that's what he was doing. He was working on his craft because where he ended up was amazing because the movies are great, Lord of the Rings. And so you could tell he did it with a lower budget, and it's in New Zealand. Funny enough, it kind of still matches with the London theme here, kind of. But in the very beginning of the movie, they have a scene of Queen Elizabeth on a horse, like in some parade back in like in the 80s.
Oh my God.
So
Oh,
yeah,
so
I was
I
like,
need
hey,
to see it because it's kind of a London horror movie.
well, yeah, because so New Zealand, I guess, is colony, principality, whatever of, or what at the time that they made the movie, I'm sure it was part of England, right? So,
I think
yeah,
it's
no, it
always
was
had.
interesting.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it has always had a close relationship because they still visit Australia and things like that. So I think it's more like a cousinship, let's say, than a colony. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, no, but it was funny because I'm starting. And I'm like, am I watching the right movie? Because there's Elizabeth on a horse, and I'm like, okay, and then then it's just rat monkeys and like just blood shooting across kitchen tables into people's porridge. Yeah, I'm telling you, it is something. There's tarot cards in it, which I always enjoy. Yeah, so
Love it.
good times. Dead Alive, not Evil Dead.
Dead Alive. And the 80s has some great, I think the 80s is underappreciated. I love the 70s. That's probably my like peak horror moment, but the 80s is underappreciated for some bonkers fun horror movies. You get some great, gritty, wild stuff in the 80s.
100%, 100%. So yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I'm glad I watched it. I apologize again for completely butchering horror classics, because Evil Dead goes in there,
Yeah.
and I think the Evil Dead 2 Rising, which is what we were talking about, like movies that were coming out, threw me off, because I don't think I ever watched the remake of Evil Dead, and I think that the Evil Dead 2 might be tied to the remake, like, so that's why it's newer. I've only seen the original Bruce Campbell stuff, who I think Bruce Campbell's awesome. I almost went and saw him live at the Carolina Theater in town, like he was here doing something.
Oh my God, that's so cool. If Bruce Campbell
So for
ever
me to
hears
really
this,
butcher Evil Dead.
That's why I was so
So
shocked, just because it's a classic. I couldn't, that makes way more sense that you've seen Evil Dead,
yeah,
but not Dead Alive. That makes way more sense.
yeah, I've been watching horror movies since I was 8. I love horror movies. We're going to talk about horror movies. I haven't seen Evil Dead. Who does that? Like, that makes no sense.
Love it.
Oh
I
man, what have
ended
you
up,
been watching this month?
so I ended up watching an 80s one as well that I hadn't seen, that we talked about in the last one, which is They Live. And I
Oh,
loved it. I
did
don't know
you?
why. I wasn't expecting an action movie. I'm not sure why I wasn't
Okay.
expecting an action movie. So that took me a little bit by surprise. But like once you see him, really, you go, oh, you're Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, only you're not. And so you're on board. It's 80s. It's going to be mental. Some of the best lines in the universe are in this film. Like, I'm here to kick ass and chew gum, and I'm all out of gum. Love it! Oh my God, it was so good. And of course, the whole underlying thing of the hidden aliens is genius, and like obey and all the signs it's iconic. I must have seen spoofs and spoofs of this, not realizing they were referring to They Live. Love it. Loved it. And it was so fun. So much fun.
Yeah.
It flew by
So good.
like that.
You brought up the I'm here to kick ass and chew gum. I'm out of gum, right? So that line, you can't help but just enjoy. The obey, I see those signs everywhere, or the stickers everywhere. Like if you're just walking, like there's obey stickers. I think, I don't know. They've definitely gone above that. So it definitely has its place in the culture, now even. Um, your youth is showing, though, because you did just say that it was like the Sylvester Stallone type. The lead actor in that movie is not an actor at all. He was a WWF superstar, Rowdy Roddy Piper, and he was in that movie. So Sylvester Stallone tried to be Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Oh, I'm so young. I'm a baby.
You didn't get up at 8 o'clock in the morning to watch Saturday cartoons and watch the WWF superstars in cartoon form. But yes, that was the man who always wore a kilt in the wrestling ring.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Rowdy.
Nope, they
I
did.
love it.
So going to how you were talking about like the wackiness of the 80s, and that very I won't say iconic, but just very memorable line about the chewing gum and kicking ass. In Dead Alive, there's a scene when they're at a funeral and they're at this graveyard and it's nighttime, and then they're like, there's an attack, and and the priest comes to save this guy, and he kicks ass for the Lord, and he starts jujitsuing and karateing everybody, and he says it, I kick ass for the Lord, and that's kind of very similar. Like it's just one of those lines, like who would say that, but it's great.
Love it. One as well. That's kind of funny. So we both watched these like actiony, almost it sounds like, horror movies, and then we both watched Renfield, which was something we were saying at the end of the last podcast we wanted to watch.
Oh yes,
and there is an action horror as well. What did you think of it?
I loved Renfield. I loved it. There was enough. It was like the perfect comedy horror action. Like there is action. It's not slow going. But I thought that the Dracula scenes were really good.
awesome.
Like when he's like mad and like killing people, it wasn't just like the slow bite you in the neck thing. He's like, I'm gonna tear you up.
Yeah, it's
What did
so
you think?
good.
Did you love it or?
I loved it. I loved all of it. But if I had one little thing to say, though, it was that I wanted more of that. Because Nick, I
Mhm.
hope this isn't ruining anything for anyone. Nicolas Cage's Dracula is injured partway through the film. I think you know this in one of the trailers. And so it means you don't see as much of him necessarily as you kind of want.
Yep.
On the one hand, he definitely has left you wanting more, though, because every scene he's amazing and you just love it. But on the other hand, I got to the end and I kind of wished I had a little bit more of him, especially again, I don't want to spoil anything, but especially because of the way the story goes, you kind of
Yeah.
wish you'd seen a bit more of him. But
And I
I
don't.
loved
Yeah.
it.
Yep. And I agree with you. You don't want to give away spoilers because it's in the theaters, right? So like, I don't want. I mean, if we're giving away spoilers from a 1979 movie, that's one thing. But like one that really hasn't been able to get fully seen yet, you don't want to. But that was like peak Nicolas Cage too. Like you could see it coming out. That was like Face Off. Like I know Face Off wasn't a great movie, but it was Nicolas Cage at like his peak, and it was Nicolas Cage. But the story really focuses on Renfield.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's I think why they didn't. But I agree with you 100%. That movie could have been 4 hours long, and I would have enjoyed it all 4 hours.
It was so good. I
Right?
thought it was so, and this is the thing, is it was so entertaining. Like all of the bits, the funny bits, the horror bits, the action bits are all really well done to be entertaining so that you'll enjoy watching them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they sort of fell short on any individual aspect of it. I think all together you just have a great time. And I laughed all the way through it.
Oh, I did the same. That is one I wish that we lived closer and we could have went and saw together because nobody here wanted to watch it. But I was all in, and you're right. It was, if you like the John Wick movies and the action of the John Wick movies, it had like John Wick feel with the action parts, and then the comedy parts of it shows us in the trailer, but they're at like a self-help anonymous group or whatever, right? And like so there's comedy going through there, and then like the detective that he meets, like there's comedy between them, so they hit every part, but they did it so well.
Yeah. I thought it
Like
was so
every part was like, you could have had a romantic comedy, you could have had just a comedy, you could have had just a horror movie with the blood and guts. So it's but they mixed it all together, and it was Cage just being Cage.
yeah. I have to say, he
Nothing
for
better than a
me,
good Nick Cage.
oh yeah. Yeah, he for me, I think he
Yeah,
did a perfect job. You know, he can fit right in with all the other classic vampire Draculas. Well done,
I
really
agree.
good. And he honestly, he made it his own, but it also fits with all the things you think of when you think of Dracula, which I loved.
That's the best way to put it. I think you put it better than what I could say, and how I was thinking. It's Nick Cage, and you know it's Nicolas Cage, but it's Dracula first.
Yeah,
Like he did a great job doing it. It's Dracula. I mean, he. I think that goes down as like, hey, are there any good Dracula movies? I would recommend that 100%.
totally. I completely agree. And I love this is not like a mess. This is like a little detail that I think some people knew. I like that they also spliced film from the original Universal Dracula, Todd Browning Dracula, into the film to make that like through line. I think that was really cool. They do lots of little details like that are just great.
I think it was what it felt like a. It's a bad way to say it, I guess, but it felt like a high budget Dracula movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I think sometimes they don't get the money in the backing, and I think they had it this time, and this is what they can do with it. I really liked it. Like that kind of was my saving grace this
Yeah.
month. Was like I saw that, and it was kind of I say it's original. It's not. It's Dracula. It's been done for years, but like the way they did it was original.
Yeah. It definitely felt different and fun. And I love that.
Yep.
And like you said, I think it's really good that they were able to do well with a big budget, because so much of horror, I think you tend to get a lot of the better horror movies don't have that big budget because they end up kind of, and the reason I'm sort of mentioning this obviously is for me, Limehouse Golem is a really good example of that. It has a very big budget. You can tell it's got, I'm seeing the nods. I think you agree with me. I haven't
Yep.
actually asked, but you can see it's shiny. It's massively well produced, amazing sets, really impressive actors like Bill Nighy. And I think it just the overabundance of like making it a shiny movie took away almost all the horror for me in that. But I'm cutting ahead of myself. What did you think?
No, I mean, you just nailed it on the head. I think podcast is over. It's been great talking to you. Um, no, that's why I kind of alluded to it when I said it made it kind of worthwhile, Renfield, because I went into Limehouse Golem, great cast, right? Bill Nighy, who he was superb in this movie. Like he was really good. And Emma Coleman is the girl, I think is her name.
Do you mean
I have it
Olivia
written
Cooke?
down,
Do you
but
mean Lizzie? Olivia Cooke?
yeah, Olivia Cooke. Yeah, sorry, Emma Coleman's probably the one that plays the queen in all the crowns, so that's why the name was there. Olivia Cooke. Yeah. So it has. Oh, sorry, the dog wants to say hi again. Um,
He's going to be
they.
the third person on the London Horror Movie Club.
I know. So he. But yeah, no, they it was a great movie. I thought the movie was really good. The story was really good. It wasn't a horror movie. Um, the the scene, so at the end of the movie when it all kind of comes collapsing down and he realizes like it was the gotcha moment, right? Like the, oh, this is what really happened. It was good in a horror. I mean, it kind of felt a little bit horror because they show murders, they show kind of what was going on. But man, I can name 3 other movies probably off the top of my head where it was like, no, they did it better here, or like that the whole like revealing of this. But like you said, the set's amazing. Um, the cast was really well. It was really well done. It did feel more like a play to me. It had theater vibes to me. Not that I go to the theater all the time, so I don't know what that really means. But if that was done, and maybe it was because they split in the movie. They kind of tell the stories and fill in the stories at the theater because that's where the actress she's a famous actress. So I actually liked those parts of the movie almost better than the trolling around. But what did you think? I mean, did it feel London to you?
This is an interesting one. So it is in the title. Limehouse Golem is in the title. So you're in Limehouse, and if you're in London, you know what Limehouse is. I'm not sure whether that's somewhere you'd know internationally necessarily. But Limehouse it's in East London. It's on the way to Greenwich. And it has always been, because it's right on the Thames, it's always been a big like mixing pot melty pour thing, lots of like ducks. You get a little like hint of this in the movie, but it was really well known for having quite a lot of the Jewish people, quite a lot of Far East Asian people come in and would be in the sort of poorer slums, shall we say, of that area. And Karl Marx has a line about it, this is where the prostitutes and the Jews are the symbol of London. And so in that way, sort of Limehouse is supposed to be seen as the underpinning of London are these people, are the people who come in as immigrants, are the people who come in and do the dirty jobs no one wants to do. But I honestly think, unless you're me and digging for this kind of stuff and going, I am determined to bring out the London in this movie, I don't think it feels like Limehouse, actually. I don't think you get that sense of why Limehouse. Why was the Limehouse Golem the interesting thing? Because if you think about it, the time period is supposed to be the similar time to Jack the Ripper.
Right.
But the golem's supposed to be this big feverish thing, but like you can't invest in it really mattering or caring. You care more about like Lizzie, who's poisoned her husband, than this serial murderer in the East End killing poor people. And I think that loses then why Limehouse mattered. But what did you think? Did you get it?
No, I'm glad that you got to go first because you say it so much better than I do. I didn't understand. Like I said, so the movie itself to me kind of came to fruition when the end where she's on trial for poisoning her husband, and then you find out kind of the gotcha part at the end, and that's the movie, right? The fact and the reason I picked, because this was a me pick, was, hey, this is a horror movie kind of like Jack the Ripper, so serial killer was. That was like the afterthought. Like that was just it was there, but like it didn't have the same feverish pitch on the streets of people being scared. In fact, I did notice this is we joked in Frenzy about how they always joke about like, oh, another serial killer in London. And it kind of felt that same way in this movie where they were like, tell us what happened. We just want to know. Not that we're scared. We just want to know. Like in like, so London just doesn't care about the horror murders. Like murderers. You guys, I mean, I guess it's just like, it's a city that's been always very populated and very cosmopolitan, with bringing in people from all over. So I'm sure horrible things have happened since the Roman times, you know? So like if there was 13 murders in Apex, North Carolina, I think people would notice and it would be on the news every night. So yeah, I mean it just fell flat. The whole movie to me fell flat. I thought it was very interesting when reading about the movie that Alan Rickman, I hope I'm getting this name right, Snape, right?
Yeah.
The movie was actually, so it's a book, but the screenplay was written with him in mind for
Bill
the
Nighy's
inspector.
character.
And then I start to think, could Alan Rickman have made the movie better? And I don't think he could have. I don't think Nighy was a great part. He played it perfectly. Like he was so good in it. But the movie itself was just like, I mean, it wasn't bad by any means. It was not bad. I would still rank it above Frenzy. I enjoyed it.
I disagree. Ooh.
Oh, hot topic. Oh, truth bombs. Boom.
You would rank this
Really?
above Frenzy.
I probably would.
Out of curiosity, what tipped it over the edge for you?
I think it was just, I just think it was it was probably at the end where like the gotcha moment, and it was just like, okay, this is what they were trying to do, and they successfully did it. But there's so many shiny objects throughout this movie. I mean, you go to when they introduce Bill Nighy's character, he's basically given this top inspector's job because like the real good inspector can't figure it out, and he doesn't want to be in the press as like the guy who can't solve this murder. So they're basically throwing Bill Nighy to the wolf, right? And they open up this carriage and he goes into like this murder house, like this house where this murders took place. And so they go, oh, there's like the murders, there's blood, this is great. But then we're back at the theater and we're singing and people are drinking and having a good time and we're doing this, and then now we're gonna flash back to when she was a girl, and you're like, oh man, there's a story to be told there. So there's like a lot of stories, and it kept my interest the whole way. Where like I think I said this in the beginning, and this is more of a me problem. Frenzy to me, just the 1970s took over, right? And it was just like and then like the tongue sticking out every time you like, oh, she's dead. Yeah, I got it. So they're both fine. I wouldn't tell people not to watch them, but I think this movie just, it confuses me because I want to like it more, and I'm digging at it to try to figure it out. It was just all over the place.
I think that was part of the problem for me, is there's a lot going on in the book as well. And as like I flashed my book up earlier, I did read the book before I saw the movie. I'm one of those people. And that being said though, as a writer, I'm not somebody who ever thinks the film should be like the book. I wrote the book with the book. If you're making it in a film, it should be different because it's a different medium, it's a different way to tell a story. So I don't mind if it's different from the book. But if you've read the book, a lot of the horror elements were like, they're not removed, but they were massively underplayed in the film, which is weird because you're trying to make a horror movie. So for example, a lot of the book is that creepy diary of the golem and how mentally bizarro world he is. And you get a little scene of like, Bill Nighy reads the golem and you have this like, he puts in his imagination the faces of the different guys saying these things. But because each time it's like, it's Karl Marx or it's Bill Nighy or it's whoever, it's all these potential suspects. And then on top of it, he's saying it, Bill Nighy is saying it. And then they have this like weird voiceover, like the kidnapper's microphone voiceover. It makes it impossible to hear what's happening. I mean, maybe that's just me having asked my sound is like whatever, but like it's really hard to hear what he's saying. And so you lose all of the creepiness of the golem. Like he's killed people, but you don't get that he's killing them for a reason. And he's really dark and really screwed up. And he's choosing these people and following them and doing horrible things to them for a reason. And I don't think the film gets that clear at all. Did you?
It does not. It does not come across that way there. Like reading into it, like serial killers are bad. So like, yes, in my mind, I'm like, this is bad that this is happening. They just didn't touch on it. Or like you just mentioned, the going through the people saying the lines and stuff and the diary could have been so much more central, because they're even going to look for handwriting samples from people. And you're like, okay, but like the diary was everything was just muted. Like it was like, hey, I want to make a horror movie, but I want my mom to watch it with me. Like she's not going to watch all this. Like, she's not going to watch a guy saying I kick ass for the Lord, or I'm done, my chewing gum's all gone, I'm trying to kick ass like with a machine gun in the bank, like but she would watch that. Like I think like that's a movie that like if you're not into horror movies might be a good movie to start people off with.
Yeah.
But then it's not. But then I don't know if it's a great like. It's just not. I don't know. I would not recommend it to people unless you really like Bill Nighy. He does a great job. If you want to see good acting, I think it's great. I do enjoy the time period. So it was good to see something that wasn't all done at like dusk and everything gray. Like this movie, you get to see the colors and you get to see in the theater and that. But yeah, that there's something was missing for me.
No, I agree with you. As well, I think it made me have this sort of question in my mind because it's not scary. It's not, or I didn't find it at all scary. And I don't think it tries to build tension to be scary. I think it tries to be a mystery more than frightening. And it made me ask this question, like, can you have a horror movie that isn't scary? Because They Live, I also wasn't scared, but it's definitely a horror movie. Does that make sense?
I think you can, because I think you go, it's kind of the intricacies of like thrillers versus gore versus, I mean, so like gore, if you have a gore movie, you can have a war movie that has a lot of gore. It's not a horror movie.
Yeah.
But if you can have a lot of gore for the sake of gore, like someone just enjoying creating the gore, that's a horror movie in my mind.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They Live is 100% a horror movie, and you just said that, but like they're taking over, like it's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, right? Like it's like they're taking over people and the robot face. Oh, it's so crazy. I got to go back and watch that movie again. So, but so it's a horror movie. You're right. This movie was like, are we gonna make it a horror movie? No. We're gonna make it a thriller movie, kind of. Are we gonna make it there definitely wasn't a comedy. Are we gonna make it a period piece? It's period, but they didn't go all in on it. It wasn't like this is for the reason of period. To me, they just missed the mark. But yes, I think you can. They just didn't. That's the right answer.
That's a good point. Yeah, they didn't at all.
Doesn't it kind of feel like there might have been three voices in there? Like maybe the writer was like pulling for one angle, and then the director's like, no, we've got to get this mainstream so it can get in the theaters and we get all these people to go see it. And so they're trying to hit like marks that a advertising agency might say, we need 2 of these and 3 of these and 4 of these. And the writer's like, no, that's not the story. And so like you're kind of compromised the whole way through.
I was literally about to ask whether you thought there were like different voices maybe trying to take this in different directions, because they have these moments where they're sort of almost doing it. Like you said, they have the big reveal, which I think is actually like it's well done, and you get a sense of creepy maybe more than scary. But then nothing else is like that. And then you have like the moments in the mystery thing where he's, like you said, they're setting up this cop to fail and he's trying to prove himself and he's got like the buddy cop with him. But then it doesn't end up being a police procedural cop movie. And so like they have all these little pieces, but then they follow through on none of them.
But so it almost feels like a waste of a good cast.
Mm.
Because even the buddy cop, like the younger cop who becomes his assistant, I don't know his name. I've seen him in other movies, and he's a fine actor. Like, he's a good actor. It was a miss. It was a
Mm.
swing, and it was a miss for my first watch um, recommendation. I hope you are bringing it a lot better than I just did this last month, because wow,
I'm
I missed.
That's fine. I mean, I gotta say though, it's interesting to watch those kind of films because, especially looking back on the fact that we've seen From Hell, and you kind
Mhm.
of go, some people didn't like From Hell. I mean, I personally did, but like you go, well, it's a hell of a lot better than Limehouse Golem. Like they took the
Yeah.
serial killer and they followed the police procedural with the serial killer, with creepy, crazy serial killer with like a mad mental health issue. Same
Yep.
basic story, and they did it really well.
Yeah, you might not have liked the movie, but you knew exactly what you were watching.
Right. Totally.
And this one, I mean, the only thing that missed out of this movie was they didn't make it a love story. Because if they did that, they would have had every science fiction. Maybe get like a rocket in the background, or like, an alien coming down. But other than that, like, Bill Nye pulls out a lightsaber. You could have all the categories um in one movie. But yeah, you know what? I'm glad I watched it, because now I know.
Yeah.
And if someone's like, "Hey, I want to watch a serial killer movie. It's a London serial killer, Limehouse Golem," I'm like, "Oh no, you should try this one, or you
Yes.
should try." Like, that's what's nice about. Sometimes you gotta see the ones that aren't fantastic to know what ones are good.
No, it's true. It's true. And I like films like this because it also reminds me, I think, that what a horror movie is. Because I think if you watch horror movies all the time, people are just like, oh, what makes a horror movie? And you're like, oh, it's really obvious. And then you watch something like this and you go, oh, not everyone knows what makes a horror movie. It's kind
Nope.
of like a genre specialty. If you've watched the horror movies, you kind of know, you get a feel for it. But if you don't know, you don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, like you said, it wasn't even a serial killer. It wasn't a thriller. It wasn't a cop procedural. Like, it just missed the mark. And they put effort into it. They put time into it. And so I hate crushing someone's effort and work, but I couldn't do it. But at the same time, like, they didn't either.
No,
So
no. I
we're
mean,
in the
that's
same
the thing
boat.
is, it's a beautiful film. It's just not necessarily a very engaging film.
Well, and the only time that I thought that we were like in London is obviously accents, because it's English accents. And then she's walking around the River Thames,
Yeah.
like walking along. But like, that could have been any city. I
Well,
mean, in From Hell, they mention London all the time.
yeah. Well, that's the
In
crazy
this
thing.
movie, no, it's I said they. I mean, they the only time that that they're really in London, like, oh, we're gonna go down to Scotland Yard. Like, okay,
Uh, Well, that's
cool.
the thing for me as well, is that they try to in a movie that is about Limehouse, a specific area of London, that has members of Scotland Yard, that has Dan Leno, who was an actual real actor from London who was famous in the Victorian era, that brings in Karl Marx, who was actually living in London during the Victorian era. You have all of this real London stuff, and it could have been in Leeds. And you're like, how is that possible? How did you tear out all of the London feel of a movie that has massive neon signposts saying this is London?
You're perfect. You're right. It could be Leeds. It could be Manchester. Can't be Liverpool, because no one had that accent. But it could have been anywhere but London.
Terrible. I think
And
that I have got upset with, because it was like, this is a London story that you have turned into just whatever random story.
yeah, like I said, I guess the consensus is they just missed their mark on all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think all the way down. C minus.
Right. C minus. Okay. Yep. It wasn't. Was this in the theaters there?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. I don't remember it being in the theaters here, but at the same time, like, that was not a time in my life where I was going to the younger kids and stuff. Like, where I wasn't really going out to see movies for me. Um, yeah, I'm glad I didn't. Spend the $16 to sit in the movie theater to watch it. But I'm glad I saw it, because at least I know.
Yeah, there you go.
So I'll always opt to watch a movie, even if it's bad,
Oh.
just so I know. So go ahead and tell me, what do you think? So we're giving that a C minus. I'm good. Did you have any drinks with this movie?
I was just about to ask. So I knew what I was getting into going in. So I
Okay.
got some port because very classy
Oh.
Victorian, very blood red sort of Victorian, but also you don't need a whole lot of port for the movie to get a little bit better. You know, you have these little glasses of port, you have 2 little glasses of port, and all of a sudden, Dan Lino's brilliant and funny, and it's all fine.
So the movie might have been really good had I chosen a different drink, because I just went with a simple red wine.
Ah, there you go. I mean, I don't think it
It
would have
was
been
serial
great.
killer. What's that?
It wouldn't have been great, but it would have been better.
Yep.
Wait,
I
so
went
the red
serial
wine.
killer, red
Mm.
blood. I was like, it's a red wine type of movie. It's Victorian, so like that's how I class it up by going a little red wine, because that's about as classy as I can get. But yeah, so it did not change it. I had 2 glasses, and it did not change the movie for me.
Out of
So
curiosity, now knowing the movie, would you have changed your drink?
absinthe.
Nice.
Anything. Ayahuasca, is that a drink? I don't
I don't
know.
know.
So it's yeah, I when I change my drink now, like, because I do like, if I'm gonna watch, serial killers, like stalking and like just like the blood red and stuff, like a wine is like a slow sipper type of movie, as opposed to like a zombie movie where I'm just like, let's just drink some beers and like you're gonna have a good time. So yeah, I would have still probably stuck with the same thing. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm very
yeah.
curious to know what you might try and do for the film I'm going to recommend for next time, because
Okay.
it's totally unlike anything we've watched before, and I think you're going to love it. So it's
All right. What is it?
I'm taking us to the 1980s. So we've just done a whole bunch of 80s watching, so we're already in
Yeah.
that space. And it's called Xtro, XTRO. And it is
Okay.
sci-fi horror. It is very 80s gritty sci-fi horror. And I kind of don't want to tell you too much,
Nope.
but
Don't.
definitely it fits that 80s space. So like don't go in expecting it to be against type. It's definitely the movie for its era. I love this movie, so I'm really hoping you will too. But it is absolutely, there's nothing in common, I don't think, with any other film we've watched so far on the podcast. So it's definitely different.
Very, very cool. I am looking forward to Extro. EXTRO.
Just X, so no E,
Oh,
XTRO.
just not even E. Okay. Extro. I got it. I will definitely be watching, and I can't wait to let you know. And now I have to figure out what I'm gonna drink with extra. I might have to do a little digging just to see what kind of movie it is, because
Yeah.
sci-fi horror, I mean, I like it. I like it. It is definitely, I don't think I've seen a whole lot of sci-fi horror. So
There's not loads of British sci-fi horror. There's obviously in the 50s there was some with Quatermass and things like that, but then it kind of disappeared a bit. So I'm pulling for it.
so are you gonna watch anything else this month before we kind of wrap up? Do you have anything else that you're eyeing?
So I've been like sort of softly looking around, but I think I haven't seen anything that's super exciting beyond Evil Dead Rise, which I haven't seen since the last time we talked. But it's a
Yeah.
funny one because like the summer, I always feel like we used to get these great summer blockbuster horrors, like summer camp horrors and stuff like that. I didn't see that many coming out. Have you noticed anything?
Nope.
It's
Nope. I'm
mad.
going to tell you, I did watch one other movie, and I will recommend it to you. It's called Hellhole.
Oh, okay.
Um, and it's a Netflix movie. So those are, you kind of take with a grain of salt. Like, you never know kind of how they're going to end. Sometimes it's like a good premise and it's just kind of fizzles out. I enjoyed it. It's a Polish movie about 1989, I think 1989, 88, at this like monastery with like all these like friars with like exorcisms, and there's a whole bunch going on. And I don't want to give anything away because it's definitely worth your time watching.
Awesome.
Do not go with dubbed. The voices in the dubbing, at least in the United States and maybe Netflix in the UK, is there might be different. It I had to watch it again with just like the subtitles, because it kind of took away the angst for it, or like just the mood of it, because you listen to this voice like that's not that guy's voice, and it's very distracting to me. I'd rather hear your own voice because they're obviously acting, and so you want it to be a good setting. And but I would recommend that a whole lot. Other than that, I have not seen anything that's coming out that's like, you said, Evil Dead Rises 2. I do want to see, but no, there's nothing like, oh, I can't wait to see that one.
Yeah, I was thinking, because I
We've
like,
already mentioned the ones, right? So
yeah, well, because I saw on the tube there's the big posters of like Russell Crowe as a priest, and it's like the Pope's exorcist, and I would like religious horror, but I don't know, something about even just the poster, I'm a bit like, eh.
yeah,
What do you think?
I like religious horror, but I'm also we grew up a little bit differently in this way. I grew up very Catholic. And so, and I don't know, very, I shouldn't say very Catholic. I grew up going to Catholic church. I went to Catholic school for a few years. Um, I like, I think you can do a lot with the Catholic kind of religious horror, especially Catholicism. Man, I've seen a lot of Exorcist movies. Like, I think I like the movie Stigmata. If you haven't seen
Oh
that,
yeah, that's a great
um,
movie.
great, right? And it was a little different. It wasn't the demon, is in you. And I mean, and Hellhole has to deal with exorcisms as well. So like, I've seen a whole lot of them. I've heard the Pope's Exorcist is good. I will watch it at some point. I'm not like dying to see it. I
Cool.
might stick around the 80s though. I think with I think now I do think Dead Alive was like 1992, but like but in New Zealand, that's like the 80s. It still had 80s feel. Well, I mean, come on. I've seen Flight of the Conchords. Like they're a little bit more back a little bit. But yeah, like I might stick with the 80s and try to go into some more 80s horrors this month, and just kind of see what ones that I hadn't seen that I was like, oh, I always wanted to see this. Never seen the movie Critters.
Oh, see Critters. Critters is good.
Yeah,
It's
so I might
fun.
go watch that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting anything big. I might go watch the first Puppet Master at some point. Like, I think I might just stick in the 80s for a while. It's just like my mindless drivel, like of just like I want to watch something. But I also need to watch Hammer, like a
Yeah.
Hammer horror at some point. I don't know if I've ever watched a Hammer horror film.
Definitely you should. If you want something that's like totally bonkers, where you the whole time you're going like, who wrote this and what were they on and can I buy some? Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. Watch Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. It's crazy. It definitely has not aged well, but it's crazy. It's very entertaining. It's very weird. It's got Peter Cushing though. It's got that classic Hammer good versus evil vibe. That's a fun way to pass an hour and a half.
Okay, that sounds good.
Awesome.
I can probably get behind that. I see my time coming back, like as the seasons change and different things going on. So I'll have time to watch. And as soon as hockey's over, I'll have plenty of time to watch movies. So I might get that and Critters in this month. That'll be good.
But also, just for our eagle-eared listeners, we also have an interview coming up in June. We're going to be interviewing Dan
Yes.
Brownlee, who is a director.
Now, will our interview will be an aside, right? From our other, we're doing Extra. That'll come out on the 28th. The interview will come out around the 13th, 14th, somewhere around then.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the Friday not the Friday before, but like 1 week in between. So I think that's like the 14th, and then the 28th
Perfect.
is our normal one. So yeah,
Yeah,
double episode.
we've got some good things coming up this summer, I think.
We do. We've got, I don't want to like give too much away. We have two directors. We've got an actual Scream Queen, a proper British Scream Queen who's a great coming on with us for our interviews. It's going to be like our summer special. I think I like this.
Yeah, no, I like it as well. And I have worked on my sister, and I've gotten her to do a 4th of July Independence Day special podcast for the American listeners on here. And so we've got a good one. We will talk more about that in the next episode of what the movie is. I'm still finalizing the movie. I've got down to 3 right now, but I think I know what I'm going with. But we're gonna have a little bit more content, right, for people to listen to. You want to hear the directors. We love doing the interviews, so we want to do more interviews. And you guys, the listen will want to hear other people talk besides us as well. So
Seriously.
but I am looking forward to Extra. That is the name of the game for this next month, and we will talk about it at that, on the 28th next month.
Love it. And thank you all so much for listening. We hope that if you have watched Limehouse Golem with us, that you forgive us. We didn't mean to. And watch Extra next time.
Stick with us.
It's good. Extra is good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lauren's going to bring us back to the happy part. Happy place.
Happy place. Thank you all so much for listening and joining us. And thank you always, Chris. It's so much fun doing this with you.
Always. Love it. Thank you.
And we'll see you next month. If you want to share your thoughts about this episode, please head to our Facebook or YouTube pages. We're grateful to Cucurbit, who made our music. Thank you for listening, and please join us next time for the London Horror Movie Club.